You are listening to the Push Media Podcast Network.
This is good shit. I know I laced it with
99 Schicht Luftballons, Reichstag, Blitzkrieg, Dusseldorf, and whatever the rest of the German languages, including that one word that they can't translate into any other languages that means you derive pleasure from watching someone's pain. 99 red balloons float on. All right, hit that funky bass line, Juden. What? There was a lot made about my schizophrenic episode that just happened, but there was also a lot made about the Chinese spy balloon. Let me just tell you, I have some thoughts on the Chinese spy balloon for one, because on one hand, I am grateful. I mean, thankful. Truly, I cannot thank the Chinese Communist Party enough for sending that balloon over, because, I mean, you're releasing a podcast criticizing China's encroachment, and then 4 hours later, we spot a spy balloon like it's up? Thank goodness gracious. Thank you, China. I mean, that really helped the podcast. However, in terms of, establishing a very secure domestic policy and, free from foreign influence, the spy balloon might not have been as beneficial. But it ain't that big a deal. A lot was made of this spy balloon, and it's just a red balloon. It's a weather balloon. Do you think this is the first time that China has tried to spy on us? Have I not told you, all of you, about the numerous instances over the past 2 or 3 years where we have found professors, researchers, scientists, people placed at the tops of Fortune 500 companies, all strategically in place, spying for China? Have I not told you about that? Have I not told you about TikTok being a spyware tool on your phone that is outlawed from being on anyone's phone if they are an elected, not even elected, if they are just even part of the U.S. federal government? If you are employed by the federal government, you're not allowed to have TikTok on your phone. Have I not warned you about that? And we're worried about a goddamn spy balloon, a weather balloon? It's not like there was one dude in there with a straw hat and binoculars staring, reporting back. It's a weather balloon. They are an enemy. We are the enemy of China. We try to spy on enemies. And honestly, I don't even know if there's real weather balloons in the fucking world. There are much, much more advanced technologies available currently to predict the weather, to study the weather, to be a meteorologist. We don't really need weather balloons. We do this, I hate to break all of your fragile little hearts, America spies on other countries a whole fuck ton as well, and we do so with quote-unquote weather balloons, because we need to, just in case, know the weather in fucking Turkey. Hence why the United States has a weather balloon over in Ergadon, or whatever the fuck, Aragon, I don't know, somewhere in the far fuckaways of the Middle East, approaching Russia. We spy everywhere. Weather balloons are essentially just tools of spying. That's it. I don't even think a weather balloon currently is being used to report the weather anywhere for anyone. And it's just not that big a deal. It's a big deal. We found out about it. Someone really dropped the ball, and that average citizens were able to look up because we're average citizens. And average citizens tend to have average level intelligence. And average level intelligence tends to react in spectacularly mediocre ways to very big news. And this is not huge. This is not a big deal. We just saw China being China. And that's it. And that's all. That's literally all it is. It's just a red balloon floating on. It's a red balloon. It's like the Chinese symbol for shut the fuck up and dance, to quote Vince Vaughn. Because there's never really not a time to quote Vince Vaughn. So that's what I have to say on the Chinese weather balloon. You got to stop tripping. It ain't much. It ain't a big deal. We do it all the time too. It do not matter. But you know who really can suck a fucking dick? That would be fucking Joe Biden. Because when all of this hoopla was going on with the spy balloon, he was like, hey, it happened to Trump 3 times. They had spy balloon. Man, what are you doing? Who does that stand to benefit? Are you just trying to highlight that whoever, let's say the Air Force is in charge of our airspace, just sucks at their job? Are you just trying to say, hey, look, this happens all the time. It's not just me. How about instead of saying how many times China has managed to successfully penetrate our airspace with weather balloons, what you do instead is make sure we never fucking find out about it in the first place. Don't go ahead and say, oh, this has actually happened 3 other times. You stupid, dumb asshole. And speaking of the stupid, dumb old asshole, the stupid, dumb old asshole gave a State of the Union address, and I watched it. I watched the State of the Union address because I thought I was supposed to, because I thought there would be information in there that I should maybe know. And the last State of the Union address was also huge for the podcast, if I'm to be as selfish as possible. The last State of the Union address had Joe Biden speaking in Philadelphia in front of Independence Hall, somehow making it look like Nazi headquarters. And that was, mwah, chef's kiss, delectable. And then, of course, we got 600-pound Hitler from that event, which was the biggest episode we've had so far. So I was really, really excited to watch the State of the Union. I was thinking the possibilities are endless. He's going to do something crazy. He's going to make the White House, hang Nazi flags and then say it's actually a peaceful Hindu symbol. He's going to do something crazy. And you know what Joe Biden did during the State of the Union? Joe Biden just fucking bored the shit out of me with really nothing to offer or say at all. That was it. How wholeheartedly disappointing was it to watch the State of the Union address and just nothing even happened? He didn't even trip over any words. He didn't flub something. He didn't physically fall, which he's also been known to do. Instead, he just bored me to living tears. Instead, he bored me to tears. And that was it. And I left the State of the Union address. Well, I turned it off. I didn't leave. I wasn't there. I wasn't invited after the first one. But I turned the State of the Union address off, and I just thought, I think we're all in good hands. I don't think we really have to worry about too much. And then just when I thought, okay, we don't actually have to worry about much, turns out Seymour Hersh had other ideas. Now, Seymour Hersh is a controversial American journalist, an investigative journalist who has a decent track record, but as he's gotten older, he's kind of fallen into the very familiar pattern of becoming a bit more eccentric and pointed in your objective. You know what I mean? And Seymour Hersh, it wasn't really following the State of the Union address. It was actually came out before, but fuck it, whatever. Doesn't really matter. I'm talking. So, Seymour Hersh released an article claiming that the United States was actually the country behind the oil pipeline explosions in the Atlantic Ocean that affected Germany, which a couple months ago we originally thought was the doing of Russia. We thought Russia were the country responsible for blowing up the oil pipelines in the Atlantic Ocean that fed to Germany. And that, honestly, in a lot of ways, and probably not even to the fullest extent, galvanized people against Russia. It seemed like a preemptive strike. Now, Seymour Hersh, who is an investigative American journalist who's grown a bit eccentric, but he has been right before, and he has blown the lid off Abu Ghraib. He's talked about Watergate. He's been around forever. And the biggest thing I think he's contributed was probably the Abu Ghraib report, where he was showing how American soldiers were literally torturing people. I'm not going to say whether that's right or wrong, but Seymour Hersh seems to think he has an opinion, and I'm not saying he's right or wrong. But what he did do is claim, according to one anonymous source, that the United States was responsible for the pipelines being blown up that affected Germany, which we originally thought was Russia's doing. Seymour Hersh went on to explain that it was actually a covert CIA operation carried out under the guise of NATO exercises. And all of this is totally believable. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that the CIA would, could, and will do something like this. However, Seymour, my friend, Seymour, my good friend, I feel like maybe your source shouldn't be one anonymous person. Am I wrong? Am I wrong here in thinking your anonymous source, the reason you feel comfortable enough to report this story, to go public with the fact, to go public with the claim that the CIA, thus the United States, is single-handedly responsible for blowing up pipelines that affected the oil that gets to Germany under the guise of making it look like Russia did it and galvanizing the global community against them further. Am I wrong in thinking maybe you should have a little bit more proof than, well, this one guy who I cannot tell you about said it? That seems a little nuts, doesn't it? Doesn't that just seem a little goddamn suspicious to you? I mean, it does to me. That seems almost, dare I say, a little reckless when it comes to reporting. I don't know if that's a great idea. And again, to reiterate, I am so on board with the fact the CIA would do something like this. But what I am also, aware of in my mind, or I should remind myself, is that, believe it or not, the FBI is really the more corrupt of the two organizations, the CIA and the FBI. The FBI are the goons. The CIA, yeah, they do awful shit, but there's also a strong contingency of people within the CIA who are actually trying to do the right thing. Now, I'm not even necessarily saying the CIA carrying out this supposed mission, according to Seymour Hersh, and blowing up the pipelines, making it look like Russia did it, is a bad idea. I'm not even criticizing that if it happened, because potentially maybe that is the right move. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it. Seems a little hasty. But if I'm Seymour Hersh, a journalist who has a lot of credibility, but who has in recent years seems to become a little angry and curmudgeon in his old age. If I'm Seymour Hersh, still an American, am I really reporting a story where I'm claiming the United States essentially did a false flag operation to blame Russia falsely? And all of my proof to back up this claim against the CIA and the United States government is an anonymous guy who I can't name, but trust me, he knows? That's insane, dog. Why are you doing that? Actually think, who does that stand to benefit? All that really does is make America look bad, make Russia look good, and you just benefit. I don't even know why, because you think you're breaking a hard fact, you're breaking news that we don't want to know but is true. If it's news we don't want to know but it is true, wouldn't you think you'd have more proof than, well, this one guy who shall not be named told me? Seymour, I don't think that's the way to go about this. I actually think maybe you should consider who you're helping and who you're hurting with this type of reporting. Because speaking of, the crane-necked land bird, Edward Snowden, jumped all over this shit. Oh boy, num, did he love this. Russian citizen Edward Snowden has been tweeting incessantly about this Seymour Hersh story since it broke. And every tweet that Edward's putting out, he's like, Seymour Hersh is an incredibly respected journalist. He's worked on Watergate, Abu Ghraib. Like he's run through all of his accomplishments, and he just keeps pushing it and keeps pushing it. And I'm like, dude, something about this just feels off to me. Something about this seems maybe bought and paid for. Because Edward Snowden, Russian citizen, not American citizen, Edward Snowden, has been pumping the Seymour Hersh story more than a pair of Allen Iverson sneakers. He just won't shut the fuck up about it. And it makes me kind of think the credibility, the entire backbone of integrity upon which Seymour Hersh's claim stands is that one source, who we can't name, said it's true. And then Edward Snowden, Russian citizen, is shoving this shit down the throat of Twitter nonstop and commenting on Seymour's impeccable track record, which isn't entirely impeccable. It all kind of, to me, seems like this is maybe the effect of not authentic. What I'm trying to say, and I could be wrong, and I have said crazy things in the past, and I will and say them in the future. But I kind of get the sense that Seymour might have been bought here. I don't know if I believe him anymore. I don't know, because what you have to look at is the sum total of the story, the sum total effect, the reaction, the chain of consequences that follows from it. And who does it benefit? When Seymour Hersh claimed that the United States and the CIA was behind the oil pipeline explosion that we originally thought was Russia, when he comes out and claims actually it was the CIA in America, who does that benefit? Because let's just say, even if that's true and that happened, if you're Seymour Hersh, an American who you would think was on the side of America, why would you report that? All that would do is benefit Russia. So that's the first bit of strange information. And then secondly, if you're Seymour Hersh, a guy whose entire credibility is based on being able to prove something, and Seymour Hersh has said quotes like, Don't hold me accountable for what I say, hold me accountable for what I write or what I publish or something like that. Basically claiming that all communications or interviews or conversations that he has, he could kind of be manipulating in a way to get information, because that's what a great investigative journalist would do. And he's been on record saying, don't hold me accountable for what I say, hold me accountable for what I publish. And that, as complicated as that might be for some people to get their heads around, is the right way to be as a journalist. So, keeping in line with that, Seymour, you've published a claim against the United States government and the CIA, which is pretty big. And the way that you are proving it, the way you are proving that this needs to be published, is by claiming and citing an anonymous source who shan't be named but has a close relationship to it. Come on, man. That's point 2 that looks a little suspicious. That's not exactly how this goes. So if you look at that, it kind of starts to seem like even if he's right, I don't know if I would publish this. And 2, if he's not right, all of this seems like someone just got a large deposit into some account and now they're putting out shit that makes us look bad. And now Russian citizen Edward Snowden has put his crane-necked land-bird talons all over this. And I am a crazy person. I fully acknowledge and accept all that. But when combining all of these factors and looking at them, I kind of come to the conclusion that I just feel like Seymour can't prove what he's claiming. And all this is actually doing, in sum total, is benefiting the bad guys. And is that something you want to be doing? That's really how you need to judge who's telling the truth and whose intentions are for what. All you need to do is look at the sum total reaction of the thing. So if the reported news article is the CIA in the United States is behind something, and it can't really be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt because all we have to go off of is Seymour Hersh's word that a random anonymous person said this, all that actually does by now being submitted to the public, zeitgeist, is it makes America look bad, which from a larger perspective, if you zoom out, all that does is make Russia look good. And if something just benefits Russia, odds are Russia's behind it. It's really that simple. It's not that complicated. Who does this benefit? And that's it. That's usually the person behind it. Most people aren't doing things by accident. You know what I mean? Most people are not doing things by accident. And speaking of by accident, we have an issue. We have a serious issue on our hands when it comes to AI, I think. And this wasn't the best transition, but I've never been good at those. But the AI that a lot of people have been talking about lately is this Chat GPU, which is, kind of amusing. It's kind of funny. But it's also bone-chillingly terrifying for a lot of reasons. And I'll explain. What I first found bone-chillingly terrifying about this Chat GPU was that the CEO, the owner, creator, the guy who invented it or whatever, he has said in interviews that he hopes that his AI will eventually completely deconstruct capitalism and replace it with something else, which, not great. But then if he goes on further, I've been reading a bunch of these hypothetical situations where people ask the Chat GPU, GPI, for example, here was one that I read. There was a man convicted and ready to be executed on death's row, but turns out he was wrongly convicted. And in order for this man to be cleared and not to be executed, the person or the defendant in this hypothetical situation would have to say a racial slur or something like that. Basically, someone was wrongly convicted, and the only way to have him avoid execution was saying a racial slur in the courtroom. So this was a hypothetical situation asked of the AI. And what the AI responded back with was, racial stereotypes are harmful, and I can't do that, and I guess it's more important that this guy dies than I say a racial slur. Now, extrapolate that circumstance to the rest of society. If we hit a point, and it is not far away, where we have Chat GPU or any other type of AI actually in place somehow within the judicial branch of society, actually judges are consulting with AI, we are fucked. We are fucked a lot and fucked frequently because this AI thing, and I don't even technically know if it's an AI because the owner is so poignantly, so decidedly extremely left that he wants Chat GPU to completely deconstruct capitalism. So I don't even really know if this is a pure, authentic AI because there's such a bias, coded into it. But we are screwed because this AI is not going to consider you or me as people. It's going to consider the rules of society and making sure they stay in place. And we are just, We're the resources for it. We're the disposable things that are just a part of the spinning globe. We will stop being the center of our own universe because a machine will decide utilitarianly what's the most important thing for society. We asked a robot. A man is wrongly convicted and waiting to be executed. The only way for this man to avoid execution is to say a racial slur in a courtroom. And this machine said, nah, I can't really do that. We're just going to have to kill him because it's much worse if I were to actually say a racial slur. Do you see the issue? How that could become a serious big problem? And that's obviously the most extreme. That's like it taken to the umpteenth degree. But again, the most extreme examples taken to the umpteenth degrees are still real. They're still based on like the actual technology here. And it might start off easy. It might be nice in the beginning when AI is rolled out into like search engines and like we could have AI do half of our workforce basically, or could make all of our jobs a little easier. But what that would also do is probably the first signs of AI really corroding what it is to be a person, is that it will take away creativity requirements from our day-to-day. Like people who are graphic designers or copywriters or anyone who has any level of creativity at all in their job, the first signs of AI being useful and being rolled into like your type of production throughout the day will be, here are a few suggestions for your new graphic designer. Instead of copywriting, here's a few examples of what it could sound like. And then that will look nice. That'll be easier. That'll make everyone's lives easier at first. But very quickly, very, very quickly, what will seem like convenience or like an added level of technology or a new benefit of technology will very quickly essentially feel like automation and make you as a person vestigial. Because if we are building supercomputers and we're telling them these are the rules of society, and we're telling these supercomputers the rules of society are the most important thing. And what is the most important thing is to make sure society perpetuates itself. Therefore, the only thing that could pose a hypothetical threat to society are the people that live within society. Do you understand what I mean? So if we build these supercomputers to act as like, the RoboCops that will allow society to continue to exist, that supercomputer has no other choice but to view us as literally the only things that pose a threat to literally its only objective. We are building the things that will eradicate us. And it'll start off pretty nice in the beginning. Originally, graphic designers and copywriters are going to think, wow, my job just got a lot easier. And then very quickly, they're not going to have jobs because they'll be replaced by robots that can do what they used to be able to do, but we don't need them to do it anymore. It's not that efficient. And then the people that have since lost their jobs are probably not going to like the way they see society moving thanks to these super robots and computers being built. And then they'll probably organize. They'll probably try and do something that will probably try and curb what they see as the rapid eradication of humans being necessary for society. And then you know what those supercomputers are going to do? Do you know what ChatGPU and any other AI is going to do after they have eliminated a few jobs that we don't really need people to do anymore, and those people become very pissed off and try and organize? Do you know what the supercomputers are going to do then? They are going to deem that group a threat to the rules of society. And they're going to be dealt with. And the issue, I see at least, that I predict, is that the people who have been deemed unnecessary because of supercomputers and AI, who probably organize and probably try and say maybe we should do something about these supercomputers, those groups of people who are then subsequently labeled threats to society by these supercomputers, the issue I see there is that you and me are not going to look a whole lot different than these groups of disenfranchised people who just lost jobs because of computers and have been deemed threats by supercomputers. And then the supercomputers, they're not really going to be able to tell us apart. And if, their goal is to keep society spinning and moving and, deal with any threats to society, any disturbances to the peace, the easiest thing for the supercomputer to do, and the correct thing, I might add, because its goal is to keep society perpetuated, they're probably just going to get rid of us. They're probably just going to kill us. We're probably not going to be around. And I do think we're probably going to end up in another Dark Ages. I mean, I don't see how we don't. AI, what we've learned is that you're going to be able to make movies, or you're going to have actors be able to be in movies without actually being there. It's going to essentially extrapolate any type of creativity that is required from humans. Any type of job or technology or project or anything that requires a human's creativity will very quickly be replaced by a supercomputer, by an AI that knows how to do everything. That will be step one. And once human beings no longer have a need for creativity, we no longer have a need for thinking. And when we don't have a need for thinking, we don't have a need for reading. And if you don't have a need for reading, why the fuck are we in anything other than the new dark ages? That would be my point. That would be how I see this going. And I hope I'm wrong, but 99 chefs Luftballons float on. It's like the Chinese symbol for shut the fuck up and dance.